So my name's Johnny Mac, and I want to hear your names on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Great to meet you. I know there's a lot of things we don't have in common, but one thing we all have in common is that I bet all of you have a story about being in a tough situation that just kind of happened to you. And I had a time back in 2020 during that crazy year where we went on vacation, and I had a tough situation that rolled up in my life that I don't want to tell you about it. I want to show you, because we were on vacation in the middle of Gatlinburg. Anybody been to Gatlinburg, Tennessee? Right? The weird capital of the world where you can go buy throwing stars or see a Titanic upside down. I don't know. But in Gatlinburg, we rented this giant place with another family, and we encountered a tough situation. And this is what happened to my rental car. Check it out. Give it up for the Bears. I'm so mad because you're not going to believe me, but you missed the moment where they opened the car door. And if you don't believe me, when you get home, Google it. There's video of bears opening car doors. I didn't know what to do. I just hide your kids, hide your wife, and then do the American thing and video the whole thing. That's what I did. That's what I did because I knew I'd be in front of you. All of us go through tough situations, and when you're in a tough situation, it's helpful to know who is for you. So I thought it would be interesting for us to take a tough situations quiz so I can find out what famous people you would want for you during a tough situation. You guys ready to go? Yeah. Okay, here's all you need to know. Put your hand in the air. You're gonna choose one of 4 options. So you can go 1, 2, 3, or 4. In a minute, that's how you're gonna vote. There's gonna be 3 situations. No, there's no 5, thank you. There's gonna be 3 situations, and then you're gonna get 4 choices of who you want for you, okay? Here we go. Tough situation number 1. You're getting bullied by someone. Who do you want by your side? Here we go. Number 1, The Rock. Number 2, John Cena. Number 3, Dominic Toretto. Or Mr. Shaw from F9. Who we got? All right, let's... Okay, a lot of ones. I'm going Dominic. Look at that face. F9's coming out. I'm so excited. All right, next situation. Here we go. That happened to you. Now, this is your fault, okay? You get busted sneaking out by your parents. Has that happened to you before? Anybody? Couple honest people will be saved and going to heaven tonight. Great. Who do you want to help? Here we go. Monica Rambeau? Vision, Jimmy Woo, or Wanda? Let's see, 3s, 4. Not bad, 4. All right. That's good. Put it down. I personally am going Jimmy Woo. Look at the smile on that dude. Okay. I don't need superpowers when I get busted. I need somebody to talk my way out of that situation, and he's the guy. All right, here's the last one. Someone breaks up with you. Who do you want to write your breakup song? Here we go. Okay. Olivia Rodrigo, Coldplay, The Weeknd, or Adele? Here we go. This time, shout your answer out. Get some 4s, some 1s. All right, that's good. I'm sorry. Olivia's great. We loved her in Bizarre-Vark. It was awesome. But shout out to Bizarre-Vark fans in the house, right? Thank you. But I'm going Coldplay because every time Fix You comes on, I just cry. Every time, all right? So it's good. Listen, when you're in a tough situation, you need to know who is for you. And this is what I know about this room and just about any room this summer that's going to be talking through this. Some of you have been in some tough situations in the past year, and some of those situations are known, and some of them are unknown. I asked some of my own students to answer the question, what's a tough situation that you've been in this year that you want to share and talk about? And they had the courage to write them down, and so I wrote them down, and I want to read them to you. So I just ask that you listen, because I think we need to connect right now about where we're really at. I have a tough situation about how I see myself every day in the mirror that no amount of posting and liking has fixed. I have a tough situation about the continual desire to stay up late, looking at things online outside the boundaries that no binge has ever fixed. I have a tough situation about telling the truth, and no amount of lies to my parents or friends has ever fixed it. I have a tough situation with actually making and keeping friends that having a phone, the right clothes, and being able to answer what your snap hasn't fixed. I have a tough situation with acceptance that crossing physical lines in relationships again and again hasn't fixed. I have a tough situation with feeling no purpose in life, that being involved in every possible activity and meeting expectation after expectation hasn't been fixed. I have a tough situation with being overwhelmed and anxious and staying isolated hasn't fixed it. I have a tough situation that others have hurt me and no one knows. I have a tough situation that involves being forced to go to church even though I don't even care about this stuff. I have a tough situation that I brought on myself by breaking my parents' trust so many times. I have no freedom. I have a tough situation with feeling like the only way out is to not be around anymore. I have a tough situation that if someone found out, they would never talk to me again. And this one was really interesting to me, and that maybe tonight you need to wrestle with this one. I have a tough situation with knowing securely if I'm going to heaven or hell that youth group, church services, mission trips, and even a Christian school title has not fixed. The data shows me, the stories show me that you and I have a lot of tough situations. And if there's one thing that I've experienced that I know you've experienced, is that in those moments, you want to know who's for you. This morning you learned about a story about a woman who did all the wrong things and everyone was against her because she broke the rules. And yet you see Jesus show up and stand right next to her. And he was for her, even though she brought that on herself. And tonight you've been learning a story about a guy who was blind. And I want to tell you the same thing that happened in story number 1 happens in story number 2. We find out who Jesus is for. So, if you have a Bible, great. If not, I'm going to go to John chapter 9, and I want to show you not just what happens to the blind man, but I want to show you what happens to us often after the miracle. John chapter 9. If you've not read the Bible very much, I don't like to assume that people in the room all know the Word of God. In the Bible, there are all these books, and these books are telling stories about God and about his people. And one of those people is Jesus, God's Son. And there are 4 books dedicated to stories about Jesus. So if you're in this room and you're a skeptic or you're wondering about him and you're not sure, I encourage you. Grab the book of John and read for yourself. Don't depend on mix. Depend on his word to tell you who Jesus is. Because the best part about the Bible is that it's filled with people in tough situations. John chapter 9, I want to catch this story because in this story are some details that you may miss if you go, oh yeah, I understand. It's about a blind man who sees sight. I think there's more to it than that. John chapter 9, it says this, as Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. Rabbi, his disciples asked him, those are his friends that were being trained up to learn how to follow God and to help others follow God. Rabbi was a term they used for teacher back then. Teacher, why has this man been born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins? This is a question that gets asked all the time. I have one of my really good friends, Mary Tatum, who works in our Shine Disabilities Ministry, and people ask the question all the time, why is my kid having this thing? And they don't see it that way. But a lot of people wrestle with some of the things. And Mary is telling me about some of the parents that wrestle with, why was my kid born with some of these challenges? But they don't see it that way in her world. They just see life is God gave me an ability to worship in my life. They don't see it that way. But a lot of people wonder, why did this happen? And Jesus hits that uncomfortable question straight on. It was not because of his sins or his parents' sins. This happens so the power of God could be seen in him. You see, we need to accept the fact that God is greater than you and I. And God deserves all power and glory. And God has purpose in every life created on planet Earth. There is no mistakes. There are no interruptions. There are no moments where he made someone and said, oh, I want to do it again. No, every life has meaning and value and purpose. This happens so the power of God can be seen in him. We must quickly carry out the tasks assigned to us by the one who sent us. That's his Father. The night is coming and then no one can work. While I'm here, I am the light of the world. And then the miracle happens, right? He spit on the ground. He made mud with saliva, not COVID safe, and spread the mud over the blind man's eyes and told him, go wash yourself in the pool of Shalom. That's just one of the pools that were around the area there where they worshiped all the time in Jerusalem. And so his neighbors, this miracle happens, by the way. This guy, I want you to think about it. He's never been able to see. Like, he was born not seeing what you and I see. And all he knows is some guy he's never met shows up in his life, puts some mud in his eyes, says, go take a shower, go take a bath, do something, like wash it off, and then he can see. And I wonder what it would have been like for the first time to open your eyes and see clearly who is for you. Because when you're a blind man in the first century, I need you to understand something, no one's for you. Like when you're a blind man in the first century, this is your posture right here. You are literally sitting right here all day just hoping somebody gives you a handout because they were considered outcasts. And yet, after years of not knowing who's for him, this man shows up in his life and he can open his eyes and see. And not only was the miracle that he could see, the miracle was someone decided to be for him. I think some of you are wondering in life, who's for you? And some of you actually are wondering, should I believe that Jesus is for me? Like this morning you talked about Jesus is for you even when you go through a tough situation that you caused yourself. And even though you could hear tonight over and over again, Jesus is for you in a tough situation that you didn't cause. Some of you are wondering, can I believe that he's for me? Can I believe that Jesus actually is going to show up in my life and be for me in a situation that I didn't bring on myself? Or can I actually believe and trust that he's going to be for me when I caused the problem? See, I think what's at stake tonight isn't what you thought it was. See, I think we put our hope and our faith and our trust in all of these things around us that somehow, some way, all of these things, even people, will be enough to be for us to get us through these moments, when really what you need to walk out of here tonight is this, is that there is a Jesus. There is a Jesus who understands tough situations and he's ready to be for you. The question is, will you open your eyes and see clearly tonight who he is and that he's sitting right next to you, ready to walk with you? I find it really interesting what happens after the text because it really describes the state of life of this blind man after he was basically given sight. This is what happens. His neighbors and others who knew him kept asking, isn't this the blind man that used to sit and beg? Some said he was. Others said, no, he looks like him. I'm like, whether he was or he wasn't, dude. Yes, I'm the same one, he says, but who healed you? What happened? The man they called Jesus made mud and spread it over my eyes. And he told me, go get in the pool. And he washed. And he said, now I can see. The dude just breaks it down. Listen, I was blind. Now I can see. Only one guy really cared. His name was Jesus. But we keep reading is that they keep debating with him. They keep saying, they took the man that was born blind to the Pharisees, and because it was on the Sabbath, they got all riled up about that. And so he told them in verse 15, he put mud over my eyes and now I could see. And they start arguing about who Jesus is and miraculous signs. And then, man, it even gets down to his parents. Verse 20, it says, we know this is our son and we know he was born blind, but we don't know how he can see or who healed him. Ask him. He's old enough to speak for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders and who announced anyone saying that Jesus was Messiah. He is old enough, ask him. So for the second time, the man who had been born blind told him, God get the glory for this, because we know this man, Jesus, is a sinner. Should God get it? Like, we can't give glory to God. Like, who's this Jesus character going around healing? And this is how verse 25, don't miss, he says, I don't know whether he's a sinner. I know this. I was blind, and now I see. I think some of you are completely blind right now because you grew up in church and you've not had an experience with Jesus that's ever changed your life. Can we get real for a minute? As a kid who grew up in church, who knew all the right answers, who could raise his hand, and I could fill in the blank of every single quiz that my youth pastor gave me and in children's ministry or whatever, I knew all about Jesus, but I had never experienced the real Jesus. And some of you are blind because of the story that you're in right now. Some of you are blind right now because you don't think you need anybody else but yourself to try to fix the tough situations you're in. And you need your eyes opened right now because you think, I have enough talent, enough skill, enough endurance, enough hard work. I can work my way out of this tough situation. I've got it. And some of us, we are so prideful because we think that we're the center of the universe and that we can control. Control is an illusion. And we're blind to the fact that we think we got it. And some of us are blind right now because of everything that's been going on in your world. You have so much noise in your life. Like, you have consumed all these things, all these distractions, all these things in your life, hoping that will be enough to get you through the tough situation. And you're blind to the fact that the solution to your tough situation is sitting right there. And tonight, I need you to know something, is that the blind man's statement is so simple. All I knew is I was blind and now I see. Listen, for those of you that are like the thinkers in the room, I need you to know something. I know a lot of facts about the Bible. Like, let's go. Like, I could tell you about the 25,000 original copies of the manuscript versus the 1,700 copies of the second leading manuscript of all time, the Iliad and the Odyssey. I could tell you the New Testament has got more than the Iliad and the Odyssey, like by a lot. I could tell you those facts, but those aren't enough. But I can tell you a story. A story that I got permission to share from our own family because 2020 was one of those things that, to be honest with you, it just wreaked so much havoc in our lives and in my life. We battled so many things in our household. We had personal battles, mental health battles, depression battles in our house. And I have a beautiful girl named Macy who, just like you, just finished middle school. She had the unbelievable courage to allow me to share this with you tonight because facts do not enter into this story, faith does. I just need you to know right off the top, like, it just does. There was a night in the middle of October where things kind of fell apart in our house. Just because I'm a pastor doesn't mean we don't have like messy lives at home. We do. I blow it. They blow it. There was a thing and it just blew up in our house. And there was a moment where my daughter looked at me eye to eye and we just talked for a minute about what was going on. And she just said, I think I want to hurt myself. And as a dad, what do you do? Y'all, I've been a trained pastor for 20 years. I had nothing. I've been around you in some of your worst situations at 2 o'clock in the morning in the hospital. I had nothing. All I knew is this. Do you want to go to the ER? And our kids' ER is awesome, and they could do an evaluation and just see how you're doing. She said yes. She had the courage to say yes. My daughter had courage. I'm like, I don't know if I'd had that courage at Thursday. We got in the car, and she's telling me about all the things that are weighing her down, and we're in the middle of this situation that I don't even need to know. And we get to this ER, and all I know is we're in the middle of this ER, and I have nothing except Jesus to get us through this situation. As a dad, it's the most helpless feeling in the world when you can't help your kids. We're in the middle of a tough situation. All I've got is prayer and Jesus. I think that's why I snapped this picture of my daughter in her hospital clothes. Because I don't know if you can see on her eyes, even though the mask is there, something's going on in that hospital room. A girl who an hour earlier said, I want to hurt myself. I have all these dark thoughts. A girl who was in that moment suddenly got transformed in a room where if you see that, that's not a girl in pain. That's a girl full of joy. How did that happen? Well, I can tell you this. I didn't make it happen. She didn't make it happen. Y'all, Jesus made it happen. Jesus walked into that room and sat side by side by me as a dad and her as a daughter, and he was just in the tough situation with us, and he got us through. And by the time we walked out of there at 6 o'clock in the morning together, we were waiting for Hardee's to open up so we can get some biscuits, y'all. Yeah. That's the wrong part to clap at. I just kissed her forehead, and I just said, "You doing okay?" She said, "Yeah." The road's been bumpy since then, but I can tell you this, it's not been like that. And I can tell you this, she looked at Jesus at February at a conference, and in front of everybody went up and hit a button in front of a packed room like this as the pastor's kid and said, "Hey, I thought I knew Jesus, but I don't. But now I do." And for the first time, she realized not who Jesus was, right? The factual part, but who he was to her. You see, Jesus is the hero of every story in this room. Like, you're not the hero of the story. I'm not the hero of the story. He's the hero of the story. And how do I know that? Because no matter what situation you brought in this room, there's one situation that everybody in this room has. You may not just realize it. Back in our scripture in chapter 9, it says this from Jesus himself. "I entered this world," in verse 39, "to render judgment, to give sight to the blind, and to show those who think they see that they are blind." And tonight I want you to know really clearly there's a situation that has happened in our story, all of our stories, that needs Jesus' attention. And it's the situation of sin. And sin has put everybody in a tough situation. Now, it's your decision whether or not you acknowledge the sin thing, right? You're like, what is sin? I've heard it in my church for a long time. Well, every great superhero has an origin story, right? And you and I have an origin story. And it goes back to the book of Genesis, chapter 1, 2, and 3. God creates all these amazing animals, like Grace's spirit animal, the lion, was created in Genesis chapter 1, Grace. That was awesome, right? And then we see the skies and the stars. By the way, can I just say one revelation that I've had in this moment is that darkness and night has always been associated with evil? No, I'm reclaiming that. God owns the night. He made it. It's his. It's not Satan's. So tonight, if you think darkness is evil, you need to know God is in the day. He's in the night. Read about it. And he makes this Adam and Eve, us. And in Genesis 3, they do something. They do the one thing he said not to do. And you can argue all day, why did God say, don't eat from the tree? It drives me crazy, but I know this. If I was made by him, I should trust him. But instead, she trusts fruit over faith, a lie from a snake. We have a sin problem. The garden's closed down, and God has a perfect standard, and sin is nothing like the perfect standard. And whether you have so much like a grain of salt of sin in your life or like a truckload, like they use to ice the roads and get them melted for us, it doesn't matter. All of that sin disqualifies you from being with God. And here's the three truths that I need to end with that you need to read loud and clear, because we are all in a tough situation without Jesus. Number one, Romans chapter 3 says this: all have sinned and fallen short of God's glorious standard. Everybody. Being a good person is not what gets you through a tough situation. The second thing you need to understand that we fail to realize, we're blind to this problem of sin. They're like, oh, I'll just work my way out of it. No, because this is what Romans 6 says. The wages of sin are death. You need to understand, death is not just about, well, we're all going to die, Johnny. No, I understand that. But are you willing to take the bet about being separated from the Creator forever? Are you willing to wager your life on that? Because sin, to get sin out of here, somebody has to die. You don't understand that. Sin has to be taken care of by death. Somebody has to lose their life. Without help, that's you and I. And it's not just being 6 feet under, it's being away from God forever. But this is how I know, and I'll close right here. This is how I know that Jesus is for you in any situation, because Jesus went through a tough situation to save you from your sin situation. I'll end with Romans 5. It says this: but God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die for us while we were still sinners. He's for you. He died for you. He's next to you, and he's ready for you to experience him because Jesus is for you, whether you created the situation or not. And he was willing to die to prove it to you.